Welcome, everyone. Have you ever felt that bubbling rage inside, only to push it down deep, pretending it's not there? Or maybe you've watched someone close to you bottle up their frustrations until they seem like a pressure cooker about to explode. Today, we're diving into a fascinating and often overlooked aspect of human behavior: the psychology of people who suppress anger. This isn't just about holding back a few choice words in a heated moment. It's about a pattern of behavior that can shape personalities, relationships, and even physical health over a lifetime. Anger suppression is more common than you might think. In our fast-paced, politeness-obsessed society, many of us are taught from a young age that expressing anger is rude, unprofessional, or even dangerous. But what happens when we consistently shove those feelings aside? Does it make us calmer, or does it create hidden storms beneath the surface? In this exploration, we'll unpack the roots of anger suppression, the psychological mechanisms at play, the long-term consequences, and ways to recognize and address it in ourselves and others. By the end, you'll have a deeper understanding of why some people choose silence over confrontation and what that choice really costs. To start, let's define what we mean by suppressing anger. Suppression isn't the same as healthy emotional regulation. Healthy regulation might involve taking a deep breath, counting to 10, or channeling anger into productive action, like going for a run or journaling. Suppression, on the other hand, is an active effort to deny, ignore, or bury angry feelings entirely. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It takes constant energy, and eventually, it might pop up in unexpected ways. Psychologists often distinguish between two main types of emotional suppression: cognitive and behavioral. Cognitive suppression involves mentally dismissing angry thoughts, telling yourself things like, "It's not worth it," or "I shouldn't feel this way." Behavioral suppression means hiding outward signs: no raised voice, no slamming doors, just a calm facade. People who suppress anger might appear composed, even agreeable, but inside, there's a whirlwind. Why do people do this? The origins often trace back to childhood experiences and learned behaviors. Imagine growing up in a household where anger was met with punishment or dismissal. If a child expresses frustration and is told, "Stop being dramatic," or "Big boys don't cry," they learn that anger is unacceptable. Over time, this becomes internalized. Attachment theory, developed by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, sheds light here. Children with insecure attachments, perhaps to caregivers who are unpredictable or dismissive, may suppress emotions to avoid rejection or conflict. They prioritize maintaining harmony over authentic expression. Cultural influences play a huge role too. In many Eastern cultures, for instance, collectivism emphasizes group harmony over individual outbursts, leading to higher rates of emotional suppression. Studies from researchers like Jean Tsai at Stanford University have shown that in cultures valuing interdependence, people are more likely to downplay negative emotions like anger to preserve social bonds. Conversely, in individualistic societies like the United States, suppression might stem from professional norms. Think of the "customer is always right" mentality in service jobs, where workers must smile through abuse. Personality traits also factor in. Introverts, or those high in agreeableness, as measured by the Big Five personality model, tend to suppress anger more readily. They avoid conflict to keep the peace. On the flip side, people with perfectionistic tendencies might suppress anger because it doesn't fit their self-image of being in control. Narcissists, or those with avoidant personality disorder, might suppress it to maintain a superior, unruffled persona. But suppression isn't always a conscious choice. Sometimes, it's a defense mechanism rooted in trauma. Survivors of abuse, for example, may have learned that showing anger provokes danger, so they dissociate from it entirely. Psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud talked about repression, a similar concept where unacceptable feelings are pushed into the unconscious. While Freud's ideas have evolved, modern psychology recognizes that suppressed emotions don't vanish. They linger in the subconscious, influencing behavior in subtle ways. Now, let's delve into the psychological profile of chronic anger suppressors. These individuals often exhibit a cluster of traits that make them seem like the nice guys or people pleasers of the world. They're reliable, empathetic, and great listeners. But beneath that, there's often a sense of resentment building up. They might say yes when they mean no, leading to passive-aggressive behaviors, like procrastination, sarcasm, or subtle sabotage. One key psychological theory here is emotional dissonance, a concept from organizational psychology. It's the strain of feeling one way but acting another. 4 anger suppressors. This dissonance can lead to burnout. Arlie Hochschild's work on emotional labor highlights how constantly managing emotions for others' sake erodes one's sense of self. In personal relationships, suppressors might attract dominant partners, creating imbalanced dynamics where their needs are perpetually sidelined. Cognitive distortions play a part too. People who suppress anger often engage in all-or-nothing thinking. If I express anger, I'll lose control and ruin everything. Or minimization. It's not a big deal, I shouldn't let it bother me. These thoughts reinforce the suppression cycle. Albert Ellis's Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy, REBT, identifies such irrational beliefs as core to emotional disturbances. By challenging them, one can begin to express anger more healthily. Let's look at some real-world examples to illustrate this. Consider a corporate employee named Alex. Alex's boss constantly micromanages and criticizes, but Alex smiles and nods, suppressing the rising fury. Over months, this builds into chronic stress, manifesting as headaches or insomnia. Psychologically, Alex might start displacing anger, snapping at family members instead of the boss. This is displacement, a defense mechanism where emotions are redirected to safer targets. Another example, Sarah, a mother in a strained marriage. Her partner dismisses her concerns, but she suppresses anger to keep the family together. Internally, this leads to self-doubt and depression. Research from the American Psychological Association shows that women, in particular, are socialized to suppress anger more than men, contributing to higher rates of anxiety disorders among them. Speaking of research, let's explore the scientific backing. A landmark study by James Gross at Stanford University examined emotional suppression using functional MRI scans. Participants who suppressed emotions showed increased activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, while the prefrontal cortex, responsible for regulation, worked overtime. This suggests suppression doesn't reduce anger, it amplifies internal arousal. Longitudinally, the Framingham Heart Study, which tracked thousands over decades, linked chronic anger suppression to higher risks of cardiovascular disease. Suppressed anger correlates with elevated cortisol levels, the stress hormone, leading to inflammation and weakened immunity. A meta-analysis in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology reviewed over 20 studies and found that suppressors experience more negative emotions overall, including guilt and shame for not standing up for themselves. Physically, the toll is undeniable. Suppressed anger has been associated with hypertension, digestive issues like IBS, and even autoimmune disorders. The mind-body connection is strong here. Psychosomatic symptoms arise when emotions aren't processed. In extreme cases, it can lead to explosive outbursts, known as anger rumination, where suppressed feelings erupt disproportionately. Mentally, the effects are profound. Chronic suppression is a risk factor for depression. When anger isn't expressed, it turns inward, becoming self-directed. This is evident in conditions like major depressive disorder, where patients often report difficulty expressing anger. Anxiety disorders, too. Generalized anxiety might stem from unresolved anger, creating a constant undercurrent of worry. In relationships, suppressors often struggle with intimacy. They might avoid deep conversations to prevent conflict, leading to emotional distance. Codependency can develop, where one partner's suppression enables the other's dominance. Therapists like John Gottman, known for his work on marriage, identify stonewalling, a form of suppression, as one of the 4 horsemen predicting relationship failure. But it's not all doom and gloom. Understanding the psychology opens doors to change. In the middle section, we'll explore the nuances further, including how suppression differs across genders, ages, and cultures, and delve into therapeutic approaches. Gender differences are stark. Men are often taught to express anger aggressively, but some suppress it due to fears of being seen as weak. Women, conversely, face the angry woman stereotype, leading to higher suppression rates. A study in Emotion Journal found women suppress anger more in professional settings to avoid backlash. Age plays a role too. Adolescents might suppress anger to fit in with peers, while older adults do so to maintain dignity or avoid health strains. In children, suppression can hinder emotional development, leading to issues like oppositional defiant disorder if not addressed. Culturally, as mentioned, suppression varies. In Japan, the concept of gamen, enduring hardship silently, encourages suppression. In contrast, Mediterranean cultures might view expressed anger as passionate and healthy. Now, Let's examine the behavioral patterns. Suppressors often use avoidance tactics, changing the subject, withdrawing, or using humor to deflect. They might somatize, converting emotional pain into physical symptoms. Eating disorders or substance abuse can be outlets for unexpressed anger. Psychologically, this ties into schema theory by Jeffrey Young. Early maladaptive schemas, like subjugation or self-sacrifice, predispose individuals to suppression. These schemas are deeply ingrained beliefs formed in childhood, dictating how we respond to threats. Another angle: evolutionary psychology. Anger evolved as a signal for injustice or boundary violations. Suppressing it might have short-term social benefits, avoiding fights in tribal settings, but in modern life, it backfires by preventing resolution. To illustrate further, think of historical figures. Mahatma Gandhi suppressed personal anger to channel it into non-violent resistance, showing suppression can be adaptive if purposeful. But for most, it's maladaptive. Shifting to the neurobiology, the limbic system, including the hippocampus and insula, processes anger. Suppression overactivates the sympathetic nervous system, leading to fight or flight without release. Over time, this dysregulates the HPA axis, contributing to chronic stress. In therapy, cognitive behavioral techniques help. Exposure therapy gradually encourages expressing anger in safe ways. Mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, teaches observing anger without judgment, reducing the urge to suppress. Dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, developed by Marsha Linehan, is particularly effective for emotion regulation. It includes skills like distress tolerance and interpersonal effectiveness, helping suppressors assert themselves. Group therapy can be powerful, as seeing others express anger normalizes it. For couples, emotion-focused therapy rebuilds trust by encouraging vulnerable expression. Self-help strategies abound. Journaling anger, writing unsent letters, allows processing without confrontation. Physical exercise releases pent-up energy. Assertiveness training books, like When I Say No, I Feel Guilty by Manuel Smith, teach boundary setting. But beware of myths. One common myth is that venting always helps. Actually, uncontrolled venting can reinforce anger. Healthy expression is targeted and constructive. Another myth: suppressors are weak. In reality, suppression requires immense strength, but it's misdirected. Redirecting that energy toward expression builds resilience. As we approach the conclusion, reflect on your own patterns. Do you suppress anger? Notice physical cues: tight jaw, clenched fists, shallow breathing. Emotional cues: resentment, bitterness. In summary, the psychology of people who suppress anger reveals a complex interplay of upbringing, culture, personality, and biology. While it maintains short-term peace, it exacts a heavy toll on health and relationships. The good news: awareness is the first step. By understanding suppression, we can choose healthier paths. If you're a suppressor, start small. Acknowledge your anger privately, then practice expressing it assertively. Seek professional help if needed. Therapy isn't a sign of weakness but of wisdom. For those around suppressors, offer safe spaces for expression without judgment. Encourage open dialogue. Ultimately, anger isn't the enemy. Suppression often is. Embracing it as a valid emotion leads to authenticity and growth. Thank you for joining this deep dive. If this resonated, share your thoughts below. Until next time, take care of your emotional world. It shapes everything.